All right, so we now have this functioning, and we have the style in here, sort of functioning. But what I want to show you is in the style is that it's not actually connected to our site. It's only connected to our site in the fact that WordPress itself will look for the style sheet and read this comment section, but it doesn't actually load this the style onto our actual pages. And just to kind of prove this point, go ahead and do this too. Go body, and then I like to do this, like do color blue, just to make the font color blue, and then do margin and just do like a big number. Let's do 250 pixels, okay? Just so that you can see that it's working. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. Now watch, if you go to your site, and if I refresh this, nothing. And that's because it's not actually being loaded in. It's just being read by that initial theme area that I showed you when we first created it. So what we need to do is actually have it load that in. And the way to do that is this. We need to make another file, and this file is going to be our functions.php. So I'm going to click on this little file here, make a new file. It's going to be called functions.php. Boom. Okay? Great. Another file. So the functions is more or less going to be our primary way of loading in technologies and things. So we're going to use this mostly to load in like our style sheets, any JavaScript that we're going to want to load in, to add other functions and things that PHP can do. Most of the power of behavior that does not deal as much with, let's say, the look, is where functions comes into play. All right, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to use this for now just to load in the style sheet. We're not going to do any styles today. We're going to be doing this in like one other thing. We just want to have it ready so that you can start applying style to it. So we want to be able to load in that style sheet. So what we're going to do is write some PHP code. So boom, boom, PHP. Let's go ahead and do the close like that. Okay. And then we're going to make our thing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a custom function. I'm just going to call it, to make a custom function, you use a keyword function, which is kind of surprising because nothing else seems to be the same. And then we just give it a name. Whatever name we want, as long as it's not a keyword. And by keyword, I mean that it's a word that's already being used by PHP or WordPress. So in this case, like, for instance, I can't write function, what's your junction or whatever, because function's already a keyword. I can't use that name as the name of it. So I'm just going to call it my underscore files, because we're just going to load my files. Probably should write like theme files. We'll just write my files, whatever. Okay, that's going to be the name of our function, and we're not going to. It's not going to have any parameters here, because or arguments if you're sending it the other way. But basically, it's not going to accept any values. It's literally just going to run, and then we're just going to do braces. You know what? Let's do it like this because it's probably easier to understand. All right, and then we're going to put in here what we want this function to do. What I want it to do is basically load in my style sheet. So the code for that, it's a built-in, again, another built-in function, is WP underscore NQ underscore style, because that's what we're loading in, and then this and that. Okay. Now what it needs is, this is the function, but we do have to send it some arguments. It needs two things. It needs the name of what we're going to call them. So this, again, can be kind of any name I want, and I'm just going to call it the main underscore styles. So it just needs a name. And then the other thing it needs is the location of where to load these from, okay? Now this gets a little bit tricky because we can't do the normal thing we do where we say, hey, I want you to load it from this file path thing, right? I can't use a normal URL because you got to remember this site's being made dynamically. Eventually it would be uploaded. So it's not the same as writing, like when we write HTML, we're hard coding it, right? We're writing it down and it's just that. This is dynamic where the code kind of changes and it adapts to where it is and what it's doing. So we're actually going to use a bit of code, kind of like this W and Q, in order to get the path of the style. So it's get underscore style sheet underscore URI, like that. Okay? And basically what this is going to do is just a pre-built function again, and it just says get the style sheet at the root of the folder. So it knows where to get it from. So it's going to get the style sheet that's already linked. It's just not using it right now. Okay? So that's what this is going to do. It's pretty straightforward. So we made a function, but if you remember, functions don't run unless they're told to run. The whole idea of functions is that you can look at them like they're just a folder that just holds a bunch of, like, imagine it's a cookbook, right? I have a cookbook and it has all these different recipes in there, but ain't none of that get made unless we decide to open it up and look at it and make it, right? So these are the instructions, but there's nothing telling them to run. So we actually have to call this function to run. Now, if you remember earlier, I mentioned that thing about hooks, okay? So we need to create a hook in order for us to have this run. So the hook to run this is going to be add underscore action. So we're going to add an action. We want to run something. And when we want it to run, it's going to be WP underscore NQ. That's right, NQ. UE. Yeah, NQ underscore script. Like that. And then it's going to run. This is the function I want to run, and it is my underscore files. That's the function I want to run. Okay. So you can kind of look at it like an event listener. I don't know if you remember event listeners from other things, but that's kind of what we're doing here, is that we're saying, okay, I want you to add an action, and I want the action. You got to tell it when you want it to run and what you want it to run. So I want this action, I want it to run when WordPress loads the scripts to my page, to my website. So basically it says, okay, when you load scripts, that's what this is. I want you to run the function myFiles, and that's going to run this function here. So that's literally what we did. So just save that, okay? And now if we go back to your site and we hit refresh, you're going to see, boom, font is blue, and we're offset by 250 pixels, okay? So now, whatever I put inside the styles, I'm going to take this out now, but whatever you put in there will now actually apply formatting onto our site, okay? And that's what our goal was. So we now have functions, which is one of the kind of bare basic things we have. We have the index, and we have the style, and there's really only one other thing that we need, and it's the easiest of all of them, and that's a screenshot, and we'll do that in the next one.